What's up, viewers, subscribers, and agents alike? It's your boy Enlightened Lucifer Imprints coming at you second time today on a different subject that many people have approached me with today. I know that now more than ever, the capabilities to really maneuver in regards to these legal processes is highly important. And I know that most people don't really wish to take the incentive to become commercially responsible for their own personal affairs, and that's totally understandable. It's just that most people really want to also be more legally responsible in regards to their personal lives, and this is where I come in. One subject I knew that people were really concerned about was the foreclosure idea. A lot of people were concerned about, the do's, the don'ts, the presentments, the process legally in regards to go to court systems and to basically forestall procedures that are against them. And I know that now more than ever in this time in history that more people need to be legally responsible in regards to their personal private affairs. So I'm going to hit on this video in regards to foreclosure and what it really is. Now, this video doesn't really need a disclaimer in regards to it, but I'll do one anyway. The information I provide is for informational and educational purposes only. It doesn't constitute legal advice. Now, foreclosure is one of those instances in which a contract is established between two entities. Normally, it's between some sort of banking institution, or it's either some third party entity. Doesn't really matter. Still, they're in contract with each other, and this is when the person basically makes the accommodation to the instrument, and they legally say, "Hey, I want to take a loan for whatever the case may be, however X amount of dollars," and whatever institution extends them the contract, they're allowed to actually say, "Okay, we'll basically give you this, and we're gonna also have a security interest in your property." But they don't really say that because I think that most people have to realize that when they actually do take out loans for mortgages, they're taking out loans against themselves. And once you take the loan out against yourself, the bank takes you on your word, or whatever financial institution it is that extends the loan to you takes you on your word. And what they also do is that they take you on your word and they bank you in the large sense of the word to indebtedness and to interest-bearing payments that are basically encapsulated on the property. So now the person has basically been finessed, and given a false hope that this property that they actually have taken an interest in is actually theirs, and that's not the case. This property now belongs to the bank because it was issued with a promissory note or promise to pay that was drafted up particularly by lawyers with a specific intent in a unilateral contract form, which is one signature contract, to extort money from the person who signed the instrument. What I also help people with is basically extending certain instruments to institutions to basically validate a debt. And that's where most people don't really get the concept down with the foreclosure idea, because they're so caught on the paralyzing factor. Hey, I'm going to lose my property. And the thing that I have to explain to people is that you lost your property when you even signed and took out a loan for the property. That's the financial truth. And when most people have default on payments, defaultation on payments also ensures that agencies and entities can proceed against you in the legal jurisdictional round, because the enforcement factor comes in through the court system. So, with that being said, let's backtrack a tad. So now we got to realize, what are these contracts? These contracts that are between the person and the entity who actually signed it, they're actually obligatory contracts that people need to really understand, that the process to redeem yourself from that is a very, oftentimes, very arduous. Depends on your competence in regards to your legal understanding on certain things. But I know that most people who actually come to these processes, they only have a certain limitation of knowledge. They only have a certain capacity to internalize the concepts, which is totally understandable. I mean, ignorance is the beginning of all knowledge. So, with that being said, also, let's go a little bit further. So the big question is, what do you do? And when I also tell people about the power of attorney in fact process and the specific negative averment process, and I also tell people about the emergency rule in regards to the act that was March 9th, 1933. I say all of this to say that the instance, particularly in regards to these processes, are basically you gaining your personal freedoms back from institutions that wish to just legally extort you and to take your money, well, with your consent. And most people aren't aware that consent is one of the most primary important powers in creation, because nothing can happen to you without your permission. So, with that being said, the foreclosure idea is basically to redeem yourself or to validate the debt that is between the person and the entity. Now, here's the good news. The good news is that any debt that is contracted is only to be validated when it's between two natural people. Now, a contract signed between an actual live person and a fiction can never exist realistically in the contemplation law. But because the deceptive measures that the legal system has taken to misinform people in regards to the process is really the key to having success in regards to your legal procedures and for your own redemption from the foreclosure idea. So that's something that people will have to contact me for one-on-one. It's the basis of just knowing what a contract really is and really understanding and interpreting for yourself how you can actually utilize a contract for your benefit, because all contracts aren't bad, trust me. It's just that people need to switch the role and stop being the obligor and start being the obligee, the person to whom the debt is owed. So, with that being said, it's just a switch. It's a role reversal. It's a realization. It's a change. It's a maneuverability between the legal concept of you knowing what you're doing and having a competence in a certain degree of understanding in regards to what you're doing. I also tell people that the best way for you to actually be successful in a foreclosure proceeding is to first be a secured party creditor. If you're not a secured party creditor and you don't have a superior security interest in your property, then they're going to take it because you didn't put anything on public record that says that they cannot. That's another step for another time. People wish to contact me in regards to that process, you can definitely do that. But more so now today, it's highly important for people to really get the concept behind that, because now it's imperative. It's more so needed today, and I think that the most viable tool for people to use in regards to their personal processes is to become a secure party creditor. Another thing is, before I proceed, some people always say, I want to become sovereign, and they get sovereign and secure party creditor mixed. Here is the kicker in regards to this. Sovereign and secure party creditor are divided because you are naturally born sovereign. It's just a secure party creditor step is a public declaration. Sort of like and what I'll say hypothetically in the biblical sense, where it says, Abraham particularly was given the promises to, have many nations born after him, and have had the fulfillment of the lineal descendancy of the messianic figure. But what had to happen after all of this promise came was that he had to get circumcised. So in reality, it was a promise before, but the public declaration to prove that he was the inheritor of the promise was the circumcision. And so it's one of the instances. I mean, that's kind of like a horrible analogy in a sense, but realistically, that's the truth. So your UCC 1 is like your public declaration of being legally circumcised. It's the best that I could actually advice I could actually give in regards to that, because I know that most people don't know that this process is it's for public record. It's a declaration publicly. Sort of like the concept of being snipped, and that's basically it. And when people understand the concepts that are behind these mechanisms in law, then they can kind of get more of a comfortability with applying, not the super sovereign idea where everything is, you gotta attack everything, keep receipts and try to do all this other crazy stuff that most people do, and that's what they do. It's just really having a legal competency about what you are engaging in and what business you're engaging in. That's the most important primary part. People get this confused because there is very little to none truthful information on these subjects, because there's a lot of channels on YouTube with disinformation, misinformation. There's people hijacking videos. There's people getting some sort of, advantageous education by looking at a few moments of the video, having a concept and selling it to you and repackaging it. But what I do is I actually provide the hard information, the hard copy, to people, because when you have that, then you know the truth. And most people don't really wish to engage in that because they know that they're trying to find some type of way to get around that. And it's their business, but the truth is, you if you're watching this video in regards to these processes, you should engage more so on the factual side and not the conjecture side. The side of conjecture, just words, verbiage, cleverly manipulated to intrigue you and to make you spend a lot of money on something that you may not really understand. And that's really, to be honest with you, it's your fault. Some people wish to blame other people, but the only person to blame is the person who was actually pulled in regards to that, which is basically the same situation that brings about foreclosure, which is the ignorance of the subject. So to alleviate matters and to really simplify things, which is basically what I do in my personal walk, is to engage people on a factual basis. The first step to really understanding this foreclosure ideology is basically validating the debt and knowing what your proper standing in law really is, what your status really is, what your real personal status really is, and what functional documentations you really have to use to your advantage to otherwise establish that publicly. That's the most important part. It's not about the issue. It's about the application of knowledge, because most people get caught up in these concepts and the first thing they think of is money. But it's not money. It's information. Today, more so now than any other time in history. Okay? All right. I'm coming at you guys with another video later. And it will be in regards to attorneys. And we'll get there because they're the ones that are trying to litigate against you to take your property. But trust me, I got you. Right? Peace. And agents, love y'all. Take care.